Pocket. This podcast is about film, episode 4 of season 2. It is great to be back in the hosting chair once again, and today we will be discussing Marriage Story, directed by Noah Baumbach and starring Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. Perhaps a more apt title would be Divorce Story, because it's less about a marriage and more about a really, really, really bitter separation between these two principal characters. And without giving too much away about the specifics, which I'm sure we'll delve into later in this episode, basically the story opens with the two characters sort of listing all of the things that they love about each other, and then from there it kind of all goes to hell, and it shows a pretty multifaceted expanse of the conflicts that they go through when they're trying to sort out the divorce and custody and other messy and emotional things. And it's on Netflix, and it's really good in my opinion. And now, with that out of the way, general impressions. Who would like to go first?
I guess I can jump in because it sounds like Mitchell might have a dissenting opinion on this. I just want to say I think Marriage Story is actually a very apt title, because I think that the whole point of that is that you kind of learn everything about this marriage and about these two people and the way they interacted through their divorce. But this is a movie that I like. I like it a lot. Last time when we were discussing it, I said, or I referred to the fact that at the time I thought of it as being basically a comedy. No, I'm not going to totally stick with that, because I think on a second view, the more tragic aspects of the movie do stand out. But I'm not going to stand down from the fact that I think this movie is very, very funny, and I think it's trying to be very, very funny. Now, there are bits of it that are very, very sad, too. You know, the notorious argument scene where Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson kind of shout at each other and sort of get violently angry with each other. That's a very sad moment, because they're kind of seeing the total downfall of this once loving relationship in this moment. But, you know, scenes where Wallace Shawn is going on lengthy rants about how he used to be a hot young actor who got a Tony in his 20s, that's meant to be funny.
Yeah.
And I think it succeeds in being funny. So this movie for me, I give it a 4 out of 5. Last time I watched it, I gave it a 3 out of 5, but I bumped it up this time because of two specific scenes that we might discuss later, but being alive, and then the ending scene where, or close to the ending scene, where Charlie reads the letter with all the things that Nicole loved about him. That really hit me on this viewing. Yeah. So those two scenes for me bumped it up to a 4 this time round. But a movie I enjoy, very funny, very sad, I recommend it.
Excellent.
Well, I had to play some serious mental 4D chess to get myself to watch this film entirely and try to be happy about it. And should I start with the bad news or the good news first?
Start with the bad news.
Okay, so it's going to be a but. There's going to be a but that'll describe my actual...
Okay.
There often is a but.
I did not like this movie.
Yeah.
I did not like the movie at all. I am not generally a fan of this genre, with few exceptions. I did not like seeing ScarJo and Adam Driver be in the positions that they were in the entire time. I don't like them being in these roles, and it's not very convincing to me. When Adam was screaming at his absolute biggest fit of rage in the entire film, I burst out laughing uncontrollably. I was on a completely different emotional plane.
Wow.
There were some very few moments where I was definitely like, I understand, you know, I'm on the human relatability, you know, ship right now. We're sailing just fine. But for like 90% of the film, I just felt like an outsider looking in on what was going on, and I didn't feel emotionally invested. But here's Christian's favorite part. But I gave the film a 4 out of 5 because it is very well made. I really like the way that the aesthetic was executed, even though I do not like the color palette and the 1.66:1 ratio, and I generally don't like those things, but it's very cohesive. The performances are actually very well done. I think that's inarguable. I like Adam Driver in this more than I do as him playing Kylo Ren, and I'm not
totally.
exaggerating. I think he.
Well, I agree with you there.
Yeah, but they definitely execute these roles very well, and their son, is very realistic. All their conversations they have are so muted and neutral, as I'd mentioned in my Twitter review, that it's kind of it's always emotionally frustrating to see them just be normal and having to deal with these things externally. As the divorce affects their relationship, because really the film's more about the divorce affecting their relationship rather than the relationship itself, and I really appreciate that originality. And I don't think I've ever seen anything done like that before. So yeah, I mean the lawyers came off as they chose great actors for the lawyers, because I don't really like any of the actors very much.
Well, I like Ray Liotta.
No, Ray Liotta's okay. Yeah, Ray Liotta's okay, but
Yeah.
my boy Alan was okay in MASH, and he's not the best person.
He's really funny in this, though.
Yeah. And and the courtroom scene was also kind of just really showed how the relationship was valued in reality. Like, if you put a legal label on this whole thing, this is how it would play out, and they have no say in it whatsoever, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how their loss of control of everything, and plus just in general the neutrality that you feel as an audience member not appealing to either one of them. That dynamic is also very hard to pull off, and I think it was pulled off really well. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Sure thing. Totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
I completely understand why someone would find this movie entirely unenjoyable.
Yeah.
So, I think everything you said was for the most part fair. And I want to address the laughing out loud at the when Adam Driver loses it. I will say generally I am kind of with you in terms of like other scenes of that caliber.
Yes.
I've actually never seen the movie, but the one with Tobey Maguire and Jake Gyllenhaal and Natalie Portman, and there's the one scene
where
Maguire's just like trashing the kitchen and screaming at her.
Yeah, that's not a very good movie. That scene is very unintentionally funny.
Yeah.
Every time I don't know if we saw that on Instagram or something.
He slams the cupboard at one point, and that's the funniest thing.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I don't know. Maybe I just can't. Maybe Tobey Maguire's got the Elijah Wood gene, where I can't unsee him as Peter Parker, which probably doesn't help at all. But for this scene though, I want to say that it did work very much for me, mostly because I felt there was much more of a build up there, and it felt more natural to me. And I'd like to pat myself on the back a little bit, because our first outings with ScarJo and Adam Driver are not Marvel or Star Wars, so yay me.
Yes, good work, son.
That's specifically a pat on Christian's back there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm becoming more cultured. And I will go. I really love Adam Driver in this, like, to the highest degree. I would not quite call this my favorite movie, but I think Adam Driver as Charlie Barber in Marriage Story is probably my favorite performance in a film. Bold statement. I reserve the right to retract that, but off the top of my head, I really don't think there's anything that quite hits me as hard as his does. Yeah. And I agree with Zach, like, in terms of the dichotomy between funny and sad. Like, I think it's there, and the funny moments are kind of what would keep you afloat, if it was just even though it is sort of like portraying the deteriorating of a relationship, what makes it so successful to me is that there's always that little underpinning of you understand that these two people really loved each other when they did, and still do to some extent, and the happy parts of that couple and their time together and their time after falling out are still there. And to me, if it was like all drama all the time, it would be exhausting and not as real. So I do think that comedic half is pretty important and worth noting. So I instead of dogging you for calling it a comedy, Zach, I'm going to choose to agree with you.
Yeah. I do want to point out, though, even though you do see that genuine love that they shared, I think it's also very... I think it's a nice point that the divorce, I think, is well-founded in this. It's not like, oh, this loving relationship isn't a tragedy. This is all a misunderstanding. Like, Nicole at many points criticizes Charlie for being selfish, and I think through the divorce and through the flashbacks and through his behavior in the film, you do see that he's kind of selfish. Kind of these divides that they note between the characters are, well-founded, and it's not like this is an unreasonable divorce. I think that it's good that they show the love as well as the sort of dissatisfaction in equal measures.
And that's the biggest tragedy of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I was going to save this for later, but I've got a sort of impossible English teacher question that has no good answer.
No.
I love those.
Whose fault is this? Is it
God's
Charlie's fault? Is it Nicole's fault? Is it freaking what's the kid's name? Is it
It's Walt Whitman's fault.
Is it Henry's fault?
I think it's Noah Baumbach's fault.
Yes.
Yes, it's Noah Baumbach's fault.
Well, I think, as in many cases of divorce, I think the situation here is that it's not really anybody's fault, and everybody is kind of at some kind of fault.
Cop out.
I'm interested. This movie is kind of partially autobiographical because it's kind of based on Noah Baumbach's own divorce from Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think.
I wouldn't know.
So I'd be I haven't, but I'd be kind of interested to read into that actual divorce and see maybe who appears to have been more at fault there, because that might shine some very interesting light on the way the characters are portrayed in this film. But I would say here, Charlie has definite issues, but I think Nicole has definite issues in having not expressed those issues and not being able to kind of stand up for herself against Charlie. I think they're both partially to blame for what's happened in this film.
Mm-hmm. And, like, the worst thing about it is that it's all, like, natural progression. Like, there's nothing that really comes up in either of their lives that doesn't make any sense. Everything makes sense, and it's not only just because both of them have reasonable expectations and reasonable morals, but it's also just because, life happens to everybody and, they have ups and downs, and that's, But Charlie's the director, so it's all his fault.
Yeah, no.
If he just wasn't a director, he wouldn't be having this problem.
Honestly, that's I'm not going to say that that's not true.
Gee, thanks, guys. All right.
Anyway, well, if I had to pin it down to one person, I would say it is Laura Dern's fault. Laura Dern.
Wait a minute. Wait, I didn't have this option on the test.
No.
I didn't know write-ins were allowed.
Okay, to get the spin team on this before this all falls into disrepair, I think that Laura Dern turns in a very good performance as herself. And, okay.
You don't need the spin team on Laura Dern. She's terrible.
I'm being
No. Okay.
All right,
I'm
Zach,
not going to let that
here's your
stand.
floor.
No.
Go,
No.
defend Laura Dern before we go
I
crazy.
think Laura Dern delivers a great performance in this. Now, you could say she feels artificial and fake, but I think that's the point. Because this woman is a lawyer. She lies for profit. That's like her entire job.
Well, Ellie
And her
Sattler
entire
doesn't lie
life-
for profit, Zach.
Her entire life is building these fake personas to appeal to different people. We never see her at home. We only see her when she's with clients and other lawyers and in the courtroom. So of course she's going to come across as fake and schmoozy because she's constantly schmoozing people. Like the whole point is that she's like the smug older woman who's been able to get everything her way, or at least tries to present it that way. And we never really see her as a real person. And I think her performance in this fantastically portrays that. And as somebody who's seen a lot of Laura Dern movies, I've seen her in a lot of David Lynch stuff. I've seen her in a lot of different stuff from the 80s, not just Jurassic Park and this. I think she's great in almost everything I've seen her in, this included.
Well,
So-
guess what, Zach? I haven't just seen her in Jurassic Park and this. I've seen her in Jurassic Park, this, and The Last Jedi. So you can go...
Okay, you can't blame an actor for the faults of the writer-director.
But you can blame it on her personality in real life.
Discussion. But
Zach.
I think the faults of that character lie on Rian Johnson and not on Laura Dern.
It's all Ryan
agree.
Johnson's fault to begin
I agree.
with, anyway.
All right. Now to really get the spin team on it.
Yes.
I actually agree with you, Zach. I spent a lot more time on this viewing. I want to say this is either the third or fourth time I've seen this movie. And I took great care to like deliberately partake in being an audience member in Laura Dern's moments, and everything her character does is calculated, like everything from the beginning.
Yep.
When Nicole walks in, she's got like these freaking like bread scone cookie things
Biscuits,
or whatever, and it's totally a play to like hook her in. And she plays relatable because she's got her kids, and she cusses in front of her kids too because haha, right?
F that.
When she takes off her shoes, they even focus on it. That's like a very, very calculated, I'm a regular person, look at me being casual moment.
Right. And the two moments, I still think her character is kind of, to me, the biggest villain, honestly. And the two moments that make that for me are the one where she gives a really powerful speech at first glance about how the mom has to be like so much more perfect than the dad, which, okay, is maybe true, but it's also true that in like most divorce cases, overwhelmingly the mom is more likely to win custody if there's a dispute, and if not full, then more custody than the father. That's just what tends to happen. So I think it paints her character well to sort of obfuscate those biases as she sees fit. And the second moment is towards the end, when she's like, at the last second, I switched it. So instead of it was 50-50, it was 55-45. And Nicole was like, I didn't want that. And so I think, Zach, I think you sort of mentioned this, and Mitchell, you mentioned it with when we were talking about the lawyers more abstractly. They are kind of, I guess more actively the villains in this, but I don't know. It's still, I guess Nicole is the one who decides to turn to the lawyers before Charlie, but I don't want to suggest that it's Nicole's fault, because it's not. And like you guys said, it's complicated. Like Nicole said, it's not as simple as just falling out of love. There's so much more going on, and Charlie is definitely flawed. And the discussion and then the back and forth is what makes it interesting, at least to me. Yeah. So I'm glad we delved into that, and I'm glad we found some common ground on Laura Dern, even if. Wow, Zach, I just want to give you some more credit here. The more I watch movies with Star Wars actors, the more I
realize that Star Wars is bad.
I mean, like, to some extent, every time I see Natalie Portman do something amazing, I'm like, gosh, George Lucas sucks. Every time, like, it's just, and
Zach is the enlightened one.
Yeah, enjoy this, Zach, because I'm not going to give you many more moments like these.
You're never going to get a moment like this again.
I just, like, I don't know. Like you said, it's more of an indictment on the director, writer, whatever.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Star Wars has all this amazing talent, and I feel like most of the talent does their best work elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I knocked a keyboard on the side here. Anyway, I think that is just a little bit disheartening as a Star Wars fan. Anyway, we don't want to get too much into the Last Jedi thing. So, moving on from that, direction. Noah Baumbach has become one of my favorite directors in recent times. I've been watching a lot of his other movies in my free time, and I think in this movie in particular, it's really crisp. I like the quirky aspect ratio because it's different and artsy and fun.
Well, it works for this film. It works for this film. It works for this film better than it does when you're like making teenagers from the 2020s wear stuff from the 70s and then like drive a 50s car. I'm like, please stop. It has nothing to do with what's going on.
I'm not really sure what that's in reference to, but
anything.
I agree.
Zach, do you want to take the floor?
You take the floor before I kill somebody.
Wow, and Mitchell is very angry. I don't think I've seen this angry ever.
Wait, I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox. Is that a Noah Baumbach movie?
No, that's Wes Anderson.
Damn it.
I think he produced that.
Okay.
So in terms of Noah Baumbach, because we are rapidly saying goodbye to the rails at this moment, I'd like to reintroduce us. I like his direction quite a bit. Specifically, I like how observational it is. He's not a director that I think of as very visual. His films don't feel especially storyboarded or planned out to me. There's no shots in them that I go, oh, the framing there, and the use of a rack focus and composition. Like, he's very much a director who puts things in the frame. Like, if you walked into the room and just looked at the situation, you'd go, oh, that's about what it would look like. But I think that suits the stories, because he tends to do very kind of down-to-earth, human, dialogue-based stories and scenes, and a really stylized visual voice doesn't necessarily work for that all of the time. So I do think it works here. There's maybe not any specific shots that I can remember, but the focus is more on the script and the performance here rather than the direction and the cinematography around it.
Mm-hmm. And I had mentioned in my review that I felt like it was really isolated, and I think that's on purpose. It's like, art housey, like, aesthetic. I don't know. I will mention that I was not a big fan of the music. I don't know if we're going to talk about it or not. Are we going to, Christian? Maybe? Yes?
I wasn't planning on it, but feel free to talk about it in brief now.
I like what Zach had said. I like when it was focused on the performance and the dialogue and things like that, far more than I did anything else that was going on in between. Especially the Schindler's List up music, and the orchestral. I didn't feel like it matched that well, in my opinion. Even though I thought it was fine, but I mean. But yeah, anyway, sideline. I'm back on the rails, Zach. Don't worry. Yeah, I like the plot was very well, developed. Like Zach had said, it didn't really feel like it was planned out at all. Not in the way like the sequels of Star Wars were. Not as much. Anyway, yes.
Low blow.
It was the progression felt very natural. It felt like we were literally following a story of a couple that was going through this, and I thought that was definitely a very good way of directing it. And I do feel like the still shots and the very occasional panning and things like that really worked for what was going on. It was subtle enough and passively intrusive, I guess, than that it wasn't. I just thought it matched everything else that was going on. So I have no complaints about the direction. I haven't seen a Baumbach film before, so it was fine.
Yay, I'm glad to have introduced you to something you don't like very much.
And rated highly for some reason.
To my world.
No, I'll take the 4 though. I understand not liking it, and I do appreciate that you gave it an honest try and are commenting critically on it, Mitchell. I really genuinely do appreciate that. And just to touch on the music real quick, I want to say it was conducted or arranged or written or whatever by Randy Newman, who has another Pixar connection, as it would happen.
That does make sense, though. I can hear that.
It does have that sort of homey feel to it. So, I think it's like a nice tablecloth, but I don't really, it doesn't really make or break the movie either way for me. But, yeah. Okay. Ending thoughts. I think we've covered a lot here, and I know while we may have ran off the rails a bit here and there, I kind of like that approach sometimes. I think it lets us cover more things and aptly adjust to whatever's on our mind. So closing thoughts. What else do you have to say? And feel free to trash the sequel trilogy one more time.
I think I've said everything I need to say about the film. One of my favorite gags in it, though, just to bring up one final thing I didn't get to talk about, there's a scene where Nicole is filming a show, and they're like talking about how she has to hold the CGI baby, and at one point, one of the directors, there's like a grip that's kind of like joking around with her, and one of the directors, like off camera, goes, "Why is there always a flirty grip?" I can confirm, as someone who's been on sets, there is always a flirty grip.
No way.
Yes.
Is this a thing, Zach? Is this a thing?
There is always a flirty grip. Even if it's just a friend of yours that you happen to know, somebody's always going to be the flirty grip, no matter what kind of set you're on.
Wow. That makes so much sense to hear out loud. Okay. Mitchell, what do you have to say for yourself?
The most disappointing moments were the ones where I was like, of course Christian and Zach are going to appreciate this more than I am. Those were the worst parts for me. Any time where you guys could relate to this and I couldn't, I was mad. But I was going to mention that I did find this film funny. Definitely not like it's a comedy, more like it's a film that Mitchell doesn't like. But I really like the dichotomy of that, and I don't know. There were some parts where I just didn't know if I thought it was funny or not. But the parts that were obviously intentionally supposed to be comedic were comedic to me. I thought it really worked. And I think the lawyers being lawyery was and also kind of combining with their personalities that we've seen in other films also really worked well. And I thought even though all three of them were lawyers, I felt like they definitely had their own individual strategies for coming at the situation, how to win for their clients, and I thought that was very, very clean cut and artificial, and I thought that really worked for what the director was going for. So yeah, you can take my 4, and you're not gonna get that ever again, but unless you do this to me again.
Cherish it.
Yeah.
I'll try not to, but no promises.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I love this film. I really, really love it. I don't know. Did I even say this at the beginning? I may not have. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I really, really, really love this film. Cannot be overstated. Earlier today, I did something a little crazy. On Letterboxd, they give you 4 slots for your favorite films.
Oh God.
You did.
And a couple hours ago, I added Marriage Story, and I removed Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire
There's
Strikes
something
Back.
wrong with you.
Oh my goodness.
There's something wrong with you, dude.
We got him.
This is a big deal. This is a really big deal.
We got
Zach
him, but not in the way we intended.
Cinephiles of the world, we've ensnared Christian Maric.
Yes, Zach has ruined me. Zach has made me even more pretentious.
Zach, this
than
whole
I already
operation was your idea.
And I'm a little okay with it, honestly. I love this film. I love this film. Zach drew attention to 2 moments. The Being Alive sung by Adam Driver, which I adore. It feels very natural, and I can tell like just the slightest bit that Adam Driver wishes he didn't have to do it, but it kind of makes it even better.
Adds
for me.
to Charlie's character.
Yes, and the ending scene where he's reading Nicole's letter, and the part where he loses it and wishes she were dead, really, really solidifies Adam Driver as like, yes. I really cannot think of another performance that I like as much as his.
I'm so sorry. I had one little note on that scene where he's reading the letter. There's a tiny little tiny little moment where he reaches a point in the letter where she wrote about like the alcohol and violence in his past, and he kind of skips over it. He goes,
Yeah.
and then skips over it. I think that's great. I don't know if that was in the script or if it was him, but that's such a parent thing. Like, I remember my own, like, parents doing that when we were, like, reading a book or something when I was a kid. Like, that's such a... All right, we got to make our way around that. It's, like, such a, like, a real-world parent technique.
Yeah, totally. And it's a nice punctuation to Nicole sharing how he loves being a dad, even the parts that you're supposed to hate. And it's just a terrific bookend to what is overall a pretty fraught movie, and it really does begin and end with some semblance of affection. Yeah. And I think that is nice and fitting, despite the film being really sad. Okay. That is it for Marriage Story. Moving on to our segments, bits, whatever you want to call them. First up, more me. Oh dear. Magical cinema.
I think we do Week in Review first.
Oh my goodness! Great, good golly,
Christian
Miss Molly,
got
I've
so
ruined
into
it.
himself. We talked about Star Wars too.
Oh gosh, I'm becoming more like Zach and Charlie Barber with every passing day.
Yeah, just don't pass out on the kitchen floor.
It's quite terrifying. Why don't you talk about your weeks? Oh my goodness.
Okay. I will go ahead. I finished the thick of it, but it's a great show. I'm not going to talk about that though. I really do recommend it though. The last episode is like one of my favorites. Instead, I'm going to kind of bend the rules of Week in Review.
Of course.
And talk about something I made rather than something that I watched.
Okay.
For the past 5 months, since about mid-January, I've been working with the Austin, Texas-based reggae rock band Kairos. I've been making a music video and a lyric video for their song Rich Rat Rhapsody 2 off of their latest EP, American Traditional. You can find both of those on the City Mist Productions YouTube channel, by the way, which might be where you listen to this podcast. I don't know. The band kind of describes their music as Tarantino-esque, so I made a deliberate effort to kind of include aspects of Tarantino pastiche in the music video.
Yep.
But I also wanted to kind of infuse my own influence as well from people like Alfred Hitchcock and Dario Argento and Brian De Palma, specifically kind of towards the end of the video where things get a little more weird and kind of traditionally me. So I'd recommend you check both out, and I'd also recommend that you check out Kairos' other songs on Spotify. Give them a listen if you're interested.
Oh,
I
got me interested.
I second that recommendation because I saw
Thank
most
you.
of the videos. Yep, definitely matched the aesthetic. I'm a kind of a subtle fan of reggae, but that's for a different discussion. That's an entirely different Cookie Pocket episode. I saw the Lost Battalion. I almost chose the other movie, but now I'm choosing the Lost Battalion. It's an A&E made-for-TV war film, and made in 2001, and Rick Schroeder's in it, and yeah, it was pretty good. I definitely can see why people would think it was aged. I felt like the color palette was kind of weird because it's World War I, and it's like brown, and then all of a sudden somebody gets shot, and then the entire screen's red. But for the most part, I thought it was really well done. Definitely some influence from Band of Brothers, or at least some people that worked for that team worked on this one. But yeah, I thought it was okay. Definitely a good Memorial Day film. It concerns a battalion, or rather a few pieces of a battalion that are lost in the woods in the Argonne Forest, and they're completely surrounded. And they're kind of like a thorn in the side of the German line, and the Germans keep trying to deal with them, and they keep living because they're Americans. They're New York gangsters, and
Nice.
and a Texan and a Montana guy are in there too. So, yeah, it's very reflective of the times, and anybody who's a fan of Memorial Day, American exceptionalism in some ways, and just World War I in general, I recommend it. Just knowing that it's a made-for-TV film and it's not supposed to be like a theatrical, really well-made thing, but yeah, go check it out.
Cool. Oh, I wasn't planning on doing this when we started this episode, but I've gone so far down the path of falling out of love with Star Wars today that I think I'll keep going. Today I watched either episode 4 or 5 of Star Wars: The Bad Batch, which is something of an animated a sequel TV show, Disney Plus original that follows the Clone Wars, and it follows this experimental group of clones with different abilities and whatever after Order 66, and after the clones are sort of working their way into the Empire and then are phased out of the Empire for stormtroopers. But this particular Bad Batch, or Clone Force 99, as some 11-year-old probably named it, they have this like little child named Omega, who's an inexplicably female clone of Jango Fett, maybe, who's like still a kid, and they're kind of like running around, and some people want to catch Omega or whatever, and they're like trying to find their place in the galaxy. I don't know. I've been kind of dissatisfied with it. I know Week in Review is not usually meant as a note of thumbs down, and I wouldn't quite call this a thumbs down, more like a thumbs in the middle. But I'm a little scared of the fan service demons. Just to contextualize this, the past 2 episodes, big spoilers here if anyone cares to watch the show. But 2 episodes ago, they bring in a bounty hunter from The Mandalorian who's a supporting character, and it's like, oh, this bounty hunter. And then by the end of the episode, nothing has really changed. There's just like some cool chase scenes, and outside of that, pretty much nothing changes for any of the characters, and it's kind of a filler episode. And then in the most recent episode, they go on this quest to save this adolescent child thing from some slavers, and it turns out the adolescent child thing is Jabba's Rancor before it grows up to be an adult, and Bib Fortuna shows up, and it's like, whoa, this galaxy is actually so much smaller than it could be.
I've been saying this for years.
Yeah, but except I don't really feel that was true until now, Zach, honestly. And I
Don't
still
open
I
this
still
can
think
of worms.
Yes.
And I still think a lot of interesting things are being discussed in the comics and in the books. And they've got this whole new publishing slate called The High Republic, where they explore stuff before Phantom Menace with a ton of new characters and new conflicts and whatever. And that's new and fresh and exciting. But I really don't need to see Bib Fortuna that much. I just don't care. So I would like to see a story actually being told, is what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
So, I love Dave Filoni. I love Star Wars. Hopefully they pick it up at some point. I don't know. So far, I'm a little dissatisfied. And yeah, that's my gosh, this whole episode has just been me turning my back on Star Wars.
Essentially.
What is happening?
I'm having the time of my life.
Oh,
I'm
awful,
not.
awful. Okay. Magical Cinema Tour.
Yes.
So how's Christian doing? Let's check in on Christian.
How you doing, Christian?
Yeah.
Seen any classics lately?
I have. It's funny you
The
should
holiday
ask.
special.
It's really funny that you should ask. I don't know why you would bother to ask and for a segment that's dedicated to me. I saw An American in Paris the other day.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, Gene Kelly. It's fun and gosh, I felt so silly for not realizing how much La La Land really took from a lot of other movies, and having seen West Side Story a bit ago, which I absolutely adored, and now this, which I also really, really enjoyed. It did not diminish my opinion of La La Land at all whatsoever, because I still think that it really stands tall. But we'll talk about La La Land a bit in the future.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. An American in Paris I thought was really great. I thought there was good chemistry between Kelly and the other principals, and the choreography is stunning as always, as anything is from him. And there's just something really special about a classic musical. I think that isn't. I don't want to say isn't achievable anymore, but isn't something that can be replicated with anything that might be made today. So I think it's really special. I think if you like good music, if you like Gershwin, if you like good dancing, if you like a fun time, if you like an ambiguous but artistic ending, maybe give An American in Paris a try. Okay.
Maybe
Gosh,
I shall.
I'm still the host. This is exhausting.
You are.
We have one more bit, and it's the rundown.
I forgot the theme song again.
I did too. Okay, so Zach, are you ready for us to hurl miscellaneous topics from this film at you as you attempt to salvage a numerical value from them?
I am. I've heard this is a long one, so I'm ready.
It is. We're going to try to burn through it. All right, Mitchell, are you ready to start us off?
No, I'm not.
Uh.
All right, I don't know what that was.
Was that the
What is
Family
this?
Feud?
Price
is
is
that?
Right.
The Price is Right. Probably. No, it goes like... There it is. All right, we can go now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really had to get that out. We have to make sure, I don't want
Yeah,
Steve Harvey coming back again.
I just want to say to our listeners out there, thank you for wasting almost an hour of your life on us.
So survey.
Don't worry. Zach, I told you not to open the door.
Steve, get out of here. Come on.
How are we going to do the rundown?
See, if I get off the
Yes, we
rails,
are.
you two follow along, and it's all your
Yes,
fault.
this is the problem.
You are the engine, I am the caboose, and we are all going off of a cliff together.
All right, let's just get this. Okay.
Every day I wake up and I want to do the rundown. Okay, 60 seconds. Mitchell, are you ready?
Yes. Wait,
3,
do I start?
2, 1. Yes, you start. Go.
Theater Kid Marriage.
3 out of 5.
Being competitive.
4 out of 5.
Wallace Shawn saying literally anything.
4 out of 5.
Laura Dern as Laura Dern.
4 out of 5.
Spelling Lego Bionicle.
3 out of 5.
In-laws.
4 out of 5.
Tobey Maguire ugly crying.
3 out of 5.
Alan Alda as Bert Spitz.
5 out of 5.
Your mom knowing a thing or two.
3 out of 5.
Somewhere between reasonable and crazy.
3 out of 5.
Casimir and Caroline by Odin von Horvath.
3 out of 5.
Store-bought ninja costume.
4 out of 5.
Audience member Mitchell Bardsley is Nancy Katz.
2 out of 5.
Box cutters.
3 out of 5.
Silent, absent, unreliable, selfish pre-90s fathers.
3 out of 5.
Judeo-Christian whatever.
3 out of 5.
Christian now knowing what Zach was obsessed with all the time.
4 out of 5.
Zach Garrigus as the Invisible Man.
4 out of 5.
New York and LA being the only two cities that exist.
3 out of 5.
Shaggy director.
3 out of 5.
Henry is the audience.
3 out of 5.
Adam Driver being a villain and hating his father.
4 out of 5.
Adam Driver singing and being alive.
4 out of 5.
Adam Driver recklessly using bladed objects. 1 second.
3 out of 5.
Netflix
Okay. We did okay then.
I kind of
Not-
stumbled.
Not quite all of it, but
I can clarify that one if you want.
you know what? Go for it. Sure.
Sure.
Nothing is sacred anymore.
I said Christian now knowing what Zach was obsessed with all the time. That's what I said. Do you understand the
'Cause
reference?
It's when Nicole directs and gets Emmy nominated for directing.
Nice.
Yes.
Of course,
Now I know
yes.
it.
Yes.
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 Oh yeah, that's because I directed some. Oh.
Yes, you
Scary.
did. That's a little preview.
Uh-oh,
Keep an eye on
uh-oh,
the
yeah.
CMS Productions channel.
Oh,
We'll
boy.
have, we'll have a little something coming.
Yes. All the plugs
That's all
today.
I'm gonna say.
All the
Yes.
plugs.
Yeah.
Follow
wow,
my
this has
main,
been-
Mitch B25J.
This has been either
Lilo.n.Mitch.
the best or worst episode we've ever done. I'm not
Yeah.
sure which. Who is the preview? I don't know anymore.
I am.
Yes.
So I will now preview the film that we'll be talking about next time. So next time I'm talking. We're going to be talking about the first horror film of the season. I held back on my horror this time. We are going to be talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula from, I think, 1991. It's a star-studded cast. We got Anthony Hopkins, we got Keanu Reeves, we got Gary Oldman, we got Cary Elwes, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This is a big movie based on a big book, and it may or may not be a big mistake. But more on that next time when we talk about Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Interesting. All right.
Huh.
This has been Cookie Pocket. It's been a podcast about film. Mitchell, do you have
Apparently.
something else to say?
Me? What? No, I don't. It's episode
Okay.
29. I don't know.
Thank
I'm
you for
stopping the
counting
train.
for me.
I'm stopping the train.
Stop
Okay.
the train. Stop the train.
All right,
Episode
without
29.
further ado, then I'm stopping the train.
Bye. Choo choo.